Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTubes, and Facebooks. It's time to queer up the news. It is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm not Al Ferguson. I'm Queer News Tonight anchor John Hayden, and this evening we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
And we have got a great panel for you tonight, very diverse and more importantly, very fun and knowledgeable. So let's get things started by welcoming Dee Weitzer, or Dr. D, as we like to call her. She's an attending psychiatrist who has spoken at national conferences, appeared on ABC News, and has over 25 publications focusing on gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer mental health. Welcome, Dee.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Well, now let's welcome anchor Dr. Bobby Huen. Dr. Bobby Huen is the owner and principal mediator of BH Conflict Resolution Services. As a certified civil and family mediator, Bobby helps individuals, families, and businesses resolve their legal disputes nationwide. Outside of work, Bobby is a gamer, a Lego builder, I love that, a foodie, and an art collector. He is always open to chat if you see him on the drive. Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you, Dee. And now let's welcome anchor Jamaal L. Starks. Jamaal L. Starks is a rare Miami native, also known affectionately as Porcelain. As a spiritual wellness consultant, he is an active member of the yogi community through the first and only queer yoga club Miami. He is positioned as the vice president of Impulse Chapter Miami, sorry about that, a member of the ballroom community through the House of Gorgeous Gucci, a professional background boasting a 16-year aviation career that led him to oversee the flight operations of 2 major airlines, and a 17-year HIV-positive thriver. He has dedicated himself to lead by example that Black queer individuals are inherently worthy of living safe, healthy, and abundantly thriving lives without social conditioning. Welcome, Jamaal.
Thank you, Bobby. And let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro. An inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame, Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Mucus. An entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites, his movie review column called Screensaver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Well, good evening, one and all.
And Gregg, this is going to be a big weekend for you, isn't it?
I already want to take a nap. Just don't want to rest up for it.
Yeah, so do the rest of us, but go ahead and tell us anyway.
So it's Miami Book Fair weekend on the campus of Miami-Dade College, and I'm honored and grateful and fortunate to be taking part on a panel reading with 3 other poets, Julie Marie Wade, Shelley Wong, and Nicole Tallman, 3 other queer poets. So I'll be bringing the testosterone.
Is that the topic of your panel?
It's called Kindred Poets.
Okay.
So it's for queer poets.
That's awesome.
I'm really excited, and I'm really honored and grateful to be part of it. It's going to be an exciting weekend. Lots of events. John Waters is going to be there. Harvey Fierstein. Very cool. So hope you can make it. And on that note, we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening, we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, National Philanthropy Day. Please give.
Yes. And Thursday is Give Miami Day.
That's right.
As well. So hundreds of worthy causes you can give to, and pre-giving is open. So if you want to give to a cause, find it and give. But we begin tonight here by queering up health. Trump-appointed Texas judge blocks Biden's LGBTQ plus healthcare protections. A Trump-appointed federal judge in Texas has ruled against the Biden administration's healthcare protections for LGBTQ plus people. President Biden has been applying the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Bostick versus Clayton County, which made anti-gay discrimination illegal in the workplace. They've been applying it to other such areas, such as education and healthcare. In Bostick, the Supreme Court found that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which bans workplace discrimination on the basis of sex, applies to LGBTQ plus people because it's impossible to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity without taking sex into account. That's logical. But U.S. District Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk has rejected that interpretation after two doctors sued. The doctors have been represented by former Trump advisor and living Sith Lord Stephen Miller from America First Legal Foundation. Kacsmaryk said that Section 1557 could have explicitly included sexual orientation and gender identity, but instead simply banned discrimination on the basis of sex, using language put forth in Title IX, which bans discrimination in education. LGBTQ plus healthcare protections have been in a tug of war for over a decade. Rules were released by the Obama administration providing protection. Then the Trump administration reversed them. Now the Biden administration tried to re-implement them through the interpretation of Bostick, though at the moment they now hang in the balance. And the good news is this is a district court judge who's apparently trying to work in cahoots to get this to the Supreme Court, hoping that the relatively new makeup will reverse that decision, one of the many that Clarence Thomas is chomping at the bit to reverse. Hopefully an appeals court will say no and the Supreme Court will deny it, but we'll see.
Well, I think the chances of Supreme Court reversing it is low due to the fact that Gorsuch is the one who wrote the majority opinion, and he is reliably conservative, but he is also quote unquote a strict textualist, which means that he only reads the text. So on the basis of sex, if he interpreted that previously at Title VII as including sexual orientation and gender identity, why not Title IX, which that's on the basis of sex exactly?
Right.
So
4 words you never want to see or speak together in the same sentence. Trump appointed Texas judge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm happy that we're seeing Bostick, this ruling in Clayton County back in Georgia, becoming the premise for now healthcare rights for LGBT. And we discussed this on the last one when we were talking about, us seeing this, and this will be a precipice that will move us forward in the LGBTQ plus fight for now healthcare.
I think it is a lot more consequential than expected due to the fact that just because it can apply to so many things, if it is on the basis of sex, that means that every other anti-discrimination law basically automatically includes us, even if it doesn't spell it out to include us.
Yeah, I can't believe, seeing this story, I can't believe that someone is taking it so literally, oh, well, it's basically saying, well, we can potentially discriminate on gender identity and sexual orientation because it is not explicitly written. And I think that it brings up the conversation of the difference between sex and gender, but also that they are similar. I'll use myself as an example. As a transgender woman, my gender identity expression is female, but my sex is male. So if my sex wasn't male, I wouldn't even be part of the community. So there is an interaction. There's a difference, but people shouldn't take stuff so literally. You really have to fight for what's right. It's kind of crazy.
But you also work in the sector of the healthcare.
I do.
So how, from your perspective, how will this affect the community if it goes forward and is upheld?
I think here's what I'm going to say is that everything, like where we are today, everything takes a long time to get better, and what we're talking about like here on is raising awareness. I think that people just have to keep on raising awareness and fight for what's right. And regardless of what happens, I do think that we will, make it. It just might be a little bit of a rocky road, just depending upon how things go.
I think I'll be honest, we live in Broward County or South Florida in general, where we have a very diverse medical community. We have very gender and sexual orientation affirming healthcare providers, but this will disproportionately hurt people who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and those who live in areas where your only clinic is maybe a church-run facility that's trying to impose their religious values on.
Yeah. One final point before we move on. You were talking about the Supreme Court. They have 6 conservatives now, so they could afford to lose Gorsuch on a rehearing, and if they have the other 5. They could theoretically
but Roberts won't go for it either. At this point, Roberts is firmly on the let's not rock the boat too much camp. So if one ruling says that sexual orientation and gender is part of sex, you cannot take it back in the other one and say that, in this title is not including sex. It makes no logical sense. So either Gorsuch reverse its own ruling, the previous ruling on both stuck, or he has to go with what he already wrote.
We live in hope.
Let's hope so. Now let's queer up politics. Senate expected to codify same-sex marriage this week following midterm wins. The Senate is expected to vote this week on legislation to codify same-sex marriage. And more importantly, the bill has enough GOP support to pass. A bipartisan group of senators has been trying for months to pass a marriage equality bill to protect same-sex and interracial relationships. The House passed its own legislation in July, but that proposal stalled in the Senate, where some Republicans raised concerns that it would stifle religious liberty. Things got more complicated when, around the same time, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Joe Manchin announced a surprise deal on a massive tax and climate change bill. Republicans were so mad that Democrats were ready to pass that deal without them that some signaled they would pool their support for a forthcoming same-sex marriage bill. But with the midterm elections over and Democrats in a position to hold the Senate for another 2 years, it looks like some Republicans are coming back to the table. Same-sex marriage has been legal nationwide since 2015, when the Supreme Court ruled that same-sex couples are guaranteed a fundamental right to marry under the Constitution. But after the now conservative court struck down Roe v. Wade in June, Democrats and some Republicans are anxious about the court's plans to weaken other civil rights. Well, I am cautiously optimistic, but I'm also worried that now that it's the Lucy take away the ball problem. Now that they lost, and the Republicans are going to take away the ball and say sour grapes and go home. So they rather maybe as a last gesture of show their base, how conservative they are, or or even just simply an FU for to the Democrats. They might just say, we don't have the quorum, we don't have 60 votes to overcome the filibuster, and our civil rights hangs in the balance once again.
This is the problem that I just expound upon from my last comment on this. The problem that I have with Democrats, this whole reaching across the table, continually having conversations with the other party in order to push some type of legislation that's so important. Like, at this point, they should have taken it to the constituents or to the voters, which 55% of evangelicals support same-sex marriages. So we should have taken it to the voters first before continuing playing this little like hopscotch loop-de-loo tug of war with the Republicans, because you can never win with these people.
Right.
Even though we're optimistic now, it's just like let's get off the moral bandwagon now and let's just start pushing the shit that we need to push.
We should not play fair with the other side that is not playing.
Never. Right.
I feel like the first thing that comes to mind with this is, why does everything have to be so complicated? That's exactly what I thought again when you were just making your comment. Why does it have to be so complicated? I mean, everybody wants happiness. It's just how we get there is a little bit different. You know,
Right.
In some ways, people have the same goals in life. Just how we get there is different. Why is this complicated?
But the mindset is, I do not want you to be. I do not want these people to be happy because I think these people are sinners and bad people, and therefore they never deserve happiness. That's the mindset that some people are going into the same-sex marriage or even LGBTQ rights debates. They just do not want us to be happy at all.
Well, I want to be happy and I want to celebrate, especially because this is just in time for my husband and I, who are celebrating our 30 years together this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So,
I once dated a guy for 30 days. I was quite
good job.
I was quite complicated. The filibuster vote is scheduled for tomorrow, and that technically ends debate. And then I believe they have to wait 48 hours once the cloture vote comes. So a final vote in the Senate probably wouldn't come until Friday, and then it goes back to the House because the Senate has made some changes. So this is not going to be resolved this week. But if we get to 60 tomorrow, it's pretty clear that it's going to go through, because 20% of the House GOP caucus voted for this back in the summer when it first passed out of the House, and that's about what we need. We need to get to 60. Probably need to get to 61, so that way Republicans can go back and say, you were that 60th vote. You know, they can always say it was more than 60. So we probably got to get to 11. I have a feeling that they've counted the noses. I have a feeling that they're going to be able to get to the number that they need, but we will see. We will see tomorrow.
I'm in my head counting, like I'm trying to do a roll call in my head, like trying to figure out which one is what. Well, but never mind.
You can be the whip.
Well,
and on that leather note,
we will hope for the best. Well, anyway, up next, Queer Up Sports. U.S. men's soccer team uses rainbow logo to protest Qatar anti-LGBTQ+ stance at World Cup. The U.S. men's team is showing their support for the LGBTQ+ community by way of a rainbow-themed logo at their training facility in Qatar as they prepare for this month's World Cup. Same-sex relationships are illegal in Qatar, and the host nation has been the subject of criticism for its LGBTQ+ policies as the World Cup approaches. The design features 7 rainbow-colored vertical stripes below USA in dark letters and is part of the Be the Change initiative the team adopted in 2020 with the goal of inspiring action on social justice issues. U.S. coach Gregg Berhalter said, quote, "When we are on the world stage and when we are in a venue like Qatar, it is important to bring awareness to these issues, and that is what Be the Change is about. It is not just stateside that we want to bring attention to social issues. It is also abroad. We recognize that Qatar has made strides and that there has been a ton of progress, but there's still some work to do," end quote. Organizers of the World Cup, which is the first to be held in a Middle Eastern nation, say that everyone, no matter their sexual orientation or background, is welcome, while also warning against public displays of affection. Some players have raised concerns over the rights of fans traveling to this year's World Cup, especially LGBTQ+ individuals and women. So, when thinking about this, I think it's kind of interesting that everyone is welcome. Come watch. But yet, be careful on that public display of affection. To me, a part of someone's identity and expression is holding hands with their partner, maybe giving a kiss. So why would how is that welcoming? To me, that kind of seems like a contradicting, it seems very contradicting to me.
But there's conditions, which is not really fair.
But how is that welcoming?
It's not at all.
Welcome to prison.
It is.
Yeah.
Welcome to prison. Welcome to your jail cell.
Welcome to being stoned.
Make sure you're aware at all times, looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I mean, that's a caution to any LGBTQ plus folks watching that want to go attend or anything. That please be very, very careful of these types of countries because I mean you're under their jurisdiction, their laws, their practices, and you're subject to that.
I hate to be contrarian, but I also want to point out that in many ways, sometimes when we're traveling to another country, it's not just because of PDA, but because they don't do PDA at all. So,
so it's good to know in advance.
In socially conservative countries, like Middle Eastern countries, they simply do not do PDA, period. There's no making out standing next to a fountain at a mall or whatever it is. So in some ways, I say that we respect that. We don't, we do not make a spectacle by, sucking on our husband's tongue in public. But that doesn't mean that I won't hold his hand or tell people that he is my husband. I'm not going back into the closet for a soccer game. But that said, today I was actually reading blogs earlier, and Joe Jervis from Joe My God reported that apparently one of the Fox News hosts says that he will no longer be a fan of American soccer because of the rainbow flag shield.
Oh,
Boo-hoo.
Ooh.
These games should not even be in Qatar. There is a great limited series right now on Netflix that looks at how these games were bought by the Qataris and the Russians 4 years ago. There was a huge bust of the leaders of the organizing body of world football, and it is it's compelling and it's well done. And I encourage everybody to write it because they literally sold these games to despotic nations, literally Russia, and then 4 years later, Qatar. Now we're going to get the North American games will be in 4 years. Throughout America, Canada, and Mexico. But look at this. I mean, it just exposes the levels of corruption that make it easy for these, fat cat executives to go, oh yeah, I'll take $1.5 million for my football federation, which goes right into their pockets. And then they hurt the Caribbean clubs. They hurt the African clubs that are supposed to get this money. To help boost their clubs and build the game in third world nations and places that need relief like sport. Because sport is good. Football is fun. But the way that Qatar got the games, this despotic nation, I mean, they make China look like an open, free, well-deserving of major event type of country. That's how bad Qatar is. And they're only about the size of this studio. I mean, they are a small little
They have a lot of money.
because they got a lot of gas.
No. Bottom line, authoritarian countries has an easier time bidding for these major world events simply because they don't need to go through the democratic process. Remember, the United States tried to get our own Olympics, but we keep failing at it because the local population didn't want it. Boston wanted to put in a bid, but then the Boston people put in a vote and say, we do not want an Olympic Games because that will bring way too much traffic.
And it's often it's a money-losing proposition off.
Right. But in America, though, we don't need to build new stadiums to host a World Cup because we've already got world-class stadiums throughout our country. And unlike the Olympics, to your point, it's spread out over multiple cities. And when the North American Games, it'll be spread out across multiple countries. So fortunately, we've got that. And then we do have the Olympics. We've got the LA Games coming in 2028. So World Cup will be a good warm-up for the U.S.
Well, thank you for that confirmation, because last night I literally looked at the documentary FIFA.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I going to watch this? Am I not going to watch this? So tonight,
Yeah, time well spent.
I think I'm going to watch it too.
Yeah.
Let's watch it together.
Okay.
Watch party tonight.
Watch party. Let's put up the USA View. Patmos Public Library again denied funds because of LGBTQ plus books. A town in western Michigan voted again to fund its local library after claims that it was grooming children by making LGBTQ plus books available. Last Tuesday, 56% of James Township voters voted against a small property tax used to provide 80% of the funding to keep the local Patmos library open. Amanda Ensing, one of the people who campaigned against the library, said, quote, They're trying to groom our children to believe that it's okay to have these sinful desires. It's not a political issue, it's a biblical issue, end quote. The library has been targeted by local conservatives all year for having LGBTQ plus books in its collection, including books like Spinning and Case Number 8. Both books have teen girl characters who discuss their feelings for other girls. Library officials said that the library has about 90 books with LGBTQ plus themes in its 67,000 book collection. The library agreed to keep most of the controversial books. Asexual and non-binary author Maya Kababi's memoir, Genderqueer, behind the main desk so that people would have to ask a librarian to read it. But that wasn't enough to satisfy the conservatives. 2 library directors resigned as a result of the hateful messages they received from the conservative residents. This is looking like Fahrenheit 4. Have y'all seen Fahrenheit 451 with Michael B. Jordan, which I thought was a horrible movie, but
It was terrible.
it was
It's a great book.
It's a great book. Terrible film.
terrible film. But this reminds me of like stupid people burning books and going after, grooming children.
Yeah.
The books are groomed.
I would disagree with you on that one comment. They're not stupid people. They know that knowledge is power, and
Right.
that's why they want to do it. They know where it's all coming from.
I just want to point out the irony to the party who rail against cancel culture is now trying to burn books, which is the first, which is basically the first cancellation event ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she's quoting a book. This isn't a political issue, it's a biblical issue. Baby, you're quoting a book that you don't even know half of that's in there.
Yes.
An edited, reverse, watered down, patriarchal book.
Of course,
That's not even
written
the
by men.
original.
Yes, right.
That's not even the original.
Right, right.
It's like intellectual muck.
Now, has Fear of Muses been banned in any books, in any libraries?
Not yet, but I can sure use the publicity.
That would be great, yeah.
Speaking of publicity, we're going to queer up entertainment. The son of Superman comes out as bi to his dad in heartwarming comic. Superman's son has finally come out to his father as bisexual in an emotional edition of the comic. And of course, he accepts him. The heartfelt moment fans everywhere had been waiting for finally happened in issue 17 of Superman, Son of Kal-El, in what was an incredibly well-written back and forth between Superman and his son, John Kent. After returning to Earth from his mission on Warworld, Superman discovers his son is in a same-sex relationship with journalist Jay Nakamura. While he accepts his son completely, the world-renowned superhero struggles with the idea John might not be ready to open up to him about his sexuality. In the issue, the two eventually talk. And when John opens up, Superman replies, quote, "No matter what, I will stand beside you. I will defend you. I will love you. And I will always, always be your father," end quote. The moment was met with a virtual ovation by comic fans who had anticipated the moment, with many saying it resonated with them. One Twitter user wrote, quote, "As a cis-gay male whose parents were amazing when I told them, this issue still had me in tears. The comic always has hope. It's in its DNA," end quote. It was first revealed John was bisexual in the November 2021 issue of Son of Kal-El, after the superhero developed feelings for Jay Nakamura. I'm overclipped. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
I feel like this is like a breath of fresh air, especially after the last story. I mean, people, when we look for acceptance, which everybody does, even outside of the community, but more relevant for us, you look at your immediate people, particularly parents. I mean, if all parents were like this, but I just want to comment, not only was it beautiful, but how many people supported it. Not only does it say how far we're coming, but it also says that the more stories that come out like this, we're going to come even further in the future.
Has the comic world always been like this, though? Or is this
Well, it's always
a recent development?
Well, it's always been an allegory for, alternative lifestyles, people who felt as outsiders and shunned and things like that. So, but the overtness of it has certainly taken on new urgency in the last few years.
Well, I said that earlier, but I'm just going to say this on camera. I am happy that Superman's son is a rice queen. I said it. I'm Asian. I can say it.
Bobby, would you like to clear up some education for us?
Yeah, please. All right, let's clear up education. Well, apologies for offending anyone else. 80-year-old Indiana school board member wages war on LGBTQ plus identities. There's a new school board member in town, and he is taking names. 80-year-old Chuck Hockma, elected Tuesday to Lafayette Community School Board in Lafayette, Indiana, won't broke openly gay teachers, critical race theory for kids, or a woke agenda. Hockma ran on a platform supporting the 3 R's and against undermining the traditional values and beliefs, promoting gender confusion, encouraging peer-to-peer sex education, violating or undermining parental rights, and supporting critical race theory or social-emotional learning when used as a cover for divisive education and promoting woke ideology. Hockma told Lafayette Journal and Courier, quote, "My reason for running for school board is because when I talk to the school board members, they would not give me an answer to the questions. And I thought, now this is some crap. If you can't tell me whether you are going to vote for CRT or you are not. You are on my list, and I am going to find out why," end quote. Hockma is also coming for anyone advocating a gay ideology. On the topic of LGBTQ plus teachers, he said, quote, "If there's a teacher that wants to be gay, that's okay. That's their prerogative. I've hired gay people. I've had them work for me, but I would not allow a gay person to push his feelings and his ideology off of other employees." End quote. And what does that even mean? Like, what is this ideology stuff? Like, suddenly we are now, my sexual orientation is an ideology? What does that even mean?
Well, yeah, it took us 20 years to get us to have them quit calling us a lifestyle. So, I mean, now we got to fight the word ideology out of it.
Well, and he's keeping a list, just like Santa.
Yeah. And by the way, Lafayette, Indiana it's halfway between Indianapolis and Chicago. And it's the home of Purdue University. So it's really a pretty,
you think progressive?
Progressive town. More so when school's in session than not. But it surprises me, and yet it doesn't, because I come from Indianapolis, and I know these people. I know a version of him, and these people are scary because they amass power. They amass power through folksiness and whisper campaigns,
right,
and general terribleness. That's my word.
And this is the state that gave us Mary and Mother Pence, too.
And
as
Dan
well
Quayle.
As the Quayles, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But they also gave us Pete Buttigieg, so we have to kind of be a little, and you. They gave us you as well.
Yeah, they did that. They did that as well.
I think Pete moved to Ohio, didn't he? No, Michigan.
He was in South Bend.
No, he was the mayor of South Bend, but him and Chasen actually moved out of Indiana. I think they're in Michigan now or something.
Oh, it's a lateral move. Yeah, okay. Sure.
I just want to make a comment going back to the story. I want to say, like, kind of bringing it back to realistics, that there are always, unfortunately, going to be people like this, assholes. Let us live free, but hopefully with time that number will go down. One of the things that was hard for me is that as a transgender woman, growing up, I was bullied in school. I had no one. This was before I came out. I couldn't tell my family. One of the things that kids look up to the most is teachers. And teachers, I feel like it's all about a power game. Like, by what was being said here, it's like, you can't push your beliefs on students, but I almost interpret it as people are going to get so scared by people like this, you can't even talk to kids about a topic related to this if they need help with their identity, because some kids in schools can't go to their parents, can't go to their families. And like, for me, it would have been so helpful if I had a teacher I could have talked to. And a story like this, it's essentially scaring teachers away from even talking to someone about it, not pushing anything.
And this is an example of how Florida has unfortunately led us to this doorstep, because our own Don't Say Gay law has become something that is being replicated in state houses across the country for the upcoming legislative session. It's, well, we don't need to say that it's terrible, but we're going to say it's terrible, and it empowers people like this octogenarian up in Lafayette, Indiana. And the real losers are the students. And, you know, from your, I appreciate your anecdotal story and your story experience growing up, but professionally, you also know have insight into how this affects children.
So as a psychiatrist, I have treated children, I've treated trans people, and what I have learned, and maybe it's common knowledge, maybe it's not, but things that happen to people, specifically trauma at a younger age, people really never grow out of. Even no matter how much treatment they get, it affects them the rest of their life. And in a sense, I don't want to say they're permanently damaged, because they can recover to an extent, but it's very rare that someone will go back to, you know, being, quote, normal. And unfortunately, they will need years and years of mental health and therapy. And even with that, some of the trauma it can't be replaced.
Absolutely.
Yeah, trust me, you're not my doctor, but I wish it. But yeah, I can definitely relate to that particular type of trauma that's just deep-seated. It's just so, it's there and it's not going anywhere.
And this type of hatred that we have been seeing spew across the country, from Don't Say Gay to this, to the Texas one where they are locking up trans children's parents for just taking care of them and providing care. And we've seen, I think they introduced legislation in another state to also lock up and call it child neglect and child...
Florida. You're thinking Florida.
Florida. Yeah. Here. Oh, wow. Here. Child neglect and child abuse. And that is specifically traumatic on the family as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's the attack we're now seeing here in the United States. Like, they're talking about family values, they're talking about conservative values, but yet you're literally shooting yourself in the mouth in your own ideology by attacking these same values in which you claim to hold so dear. It's just disgusting, and it's nothing. It all boils down to hatred.
And hypocrisy.
And hypocrisy.
Yeah. One generation got out of the closet, and now they're trying to make sure the next ones do not. We shall see.
Yeah. Well, up next, Queer Up the USA View. Georgia police officer sues U.S. military over outdated ban on HIV-positive recruits. A U.S. military rule banning people with HIV from joining the armed services is being challenged as medically outdated by a gay Georgia police officer who says the decades-old policy dashed his dream of becoming an Army helicopter pilot. 23-year-old Isaiah Wilkins argues in a suit filed Thursday that 2 decades of advancements have, quote, radically changed the landscape of HIV treatment and prevention, end quote, making HIV status irrelevant to a person's ability to serve. The suit is filed by the oldest and largest LGBTQ+ rights group in the country, Lambda Legal. Lambda Legal argues, quote, these medical advances should have led to an overhaul of military policies related to people living with HIV. Instead, the Department of Defense and Army and all the military departments have maintained the bar to enlistment and appointment of people living with HIV, even as these same policies were revised in other ways over the years, end quote. Navy Commander Nicole Schwegman, a Pentagon spokesperson, declined to comment on pending litigation. The suit aims to expand on Lambda Legal's landmark victory earlier this year in 2 related cases that forced the Defense Department to lift long-standing bans on service members deploying overseas or commissioning as officers if they contract HIV or they're already enlisted. So, this is kind of another interesting one, but I think that people, it's really sad that people who just want to serve the country and do good are being rejected. I mean, this kind of reminds me of years ago when people who are trans was called Sia and you can't be. If people want to serve the country, and if in reality, if you have some sort of difference about you, whatever it is, but it doesn't affect your ability to serve, why does it matter?
Right.
Yeah.
And this story really reminds me of, I personally think it's all about image, that it's all about power and image. Like the military wants to only take in the strong and doesn't want to uphold an image to the public that we're weak. And I think that that's kind of unfortunate.
And with somebody who's living with HIV, it takes a strong person.
It does. It really does.
It takes a strong person to be trans.
Right.
It takes a strong person to live outside of the societal marker, to live on these quote unquote proverbial fringes of society. And then to serve a country that really doesn't even like you. That's even, my hat's off to you to even put a suit on in legislation to even go forward with this.
Military has always needed the push and the shove. They are a very hidebound organization. They tend to be very conservative from the get-go. I'm not justifying their behavior, but honestly, what is the difference between a soldier who got HIV after they started the tour, or the one who are just getting started? It makes no difference. They just if an officer can serve while he has the virus, then a recruit can go through boot camp while he has the virus. There's really no difference there. But the military requires us to the civilians to nudge them in that direction every time they need to, step like a millimeter forward.
Which is good because that we have a civilian-run military, a civilian-run military.
Well, and hopefully Lambda Legal, who's got a great track record,
Yes.
can work some more of their great stuff.
All right. Well, next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church, and it's right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
I'm Julio Capo Jr., and I'm a history professor at Florida International University, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Dr. Julio.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hot Spots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm John Hayden, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dr. Dee Weitzer, Dr. Bobby Huen, a lot of doctors. I'm feeling very unsmart. Jamaal L, Porcelain Starks, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show, one final story.
Let's queer up the big interview. Historic first transgender Mr. Ramrod discusses leather, community, and what's next. This week is Transgender Awareness Week, and in honor of the T in our LGBTQ plus community, Queer News Tonight and the Happening Out television network, we will be broadcasting live from SF Bishop Makalini Mahi Transgender Equality Awards with an all-special, all-transgender cast this week. We are also proud to spotlight other members of our local community who are creating positive change, including the new Mr. Ramrod 2023 James Tersha. Recently, Queer News Tonight anchor David Hopkins sat down with James to discuss the leather community, the community at large, and how being the first transgender Mr. Ramrod can help inspire others.
Ramrod Bar is famous here in South Florida as the oldest leather bar in Florida and one of the oldest in the Southeast. Since 1995, they've held the Mr. Ramrod Contest, a competition that celebrates members of our local leather community. After a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic, the competition returned last month, and I am proud to welcome our Mr. Ramrod 2023, James Tersha, to Queer News Tonight. How are you this evening?
Good evening. How are you, David?
I'm great to have you. It's great when my social life and my work life can blend together. James is a brother of mine in the community. We've known each other for years. We do a lot together with charity work, and it's good to have that here. And as a Leatherman, explain to our viewers what being a Leatherman and being part of the leather community means to you.
Well, being a Leatherman is definitely a lot more than just wearing leather. It is a lifestyle. It's who you are. It's your community. It's everything involved. It also involves, if there's an old guard and new guard, they both have the same values with different leather these days.
And for the viewers who don't know, just a quick clarification, what would you consider old guard, or how would you define old guard versus new guard?
Old guard is very military style. It's very strict. It's got high integrity. It's got authority. It's basically like being in boot camp in a way. It's very hardcore, and they follow the rules. They follow tradition and history. The new guard is a little bit different. It's not as strict, but they do follow the same values. However, what is traditional leather is wearing a mirror cap, leather jackets, and formal leather attire, vests, all the time, and flagging and Levi jeans. Nowadays, you see people in glamish style leather, colorful harnesses, puppy gear. It's all over the place, and that's wonderful. But that's like the vast difference between old guard, new guard, as far as a visual aspect. What we are as Leathermen and our community, when we come together, we do fundraisers, we help each other, we're there for each other. That all is the same as a Leatherman.
So it's saying New Guard focuses on a wider variety of fetish, whereas Old Guard is more structured, military, like you said, and you are a military veteran, correct? So, yeah, so you know that firsthand. Right. So why, you're a barber as well?
I get to give head all day long.
So why did you, how do being a Leatherman and a barber reconcile with each other? I feel like they're not necessarily connected, but could be.
Yes, barbering is quite a fetish as well. I'm on the app, Scruff and everything, and I have myself as my barber, and I get clients that way. However, I do get people who are into the fetish of being tied up and have their head shaved, and it's the scents that come along with the barber side and shaving cream and the razor. That's a kink. People are into knife play and all kinds of stuff like that, and that kind of follows suit with that. So it turns people on. People like to be, I guess, manhandled and touched. It's kind of sexy. But my job, I'm a professional barber. I do not associate my job, my career at all with being a Leatherman in that aspect. However, it makes me more of a sexier Leatherman if I'm a barber. But yeah, I don't mix the two. I work a lot. I work long hours, and when I'm done with work, I'm done. I don't mix it.
Now, if someone's here in South Florida and they want to get a haircut and shave from you, where can they go?
Carvedbarbershop.com. We're located in Wilton, 5 Points, right after the tracks and the Wilton station in the retail section.
Okay.
And we are a brand new barbershop that just opened up in June. We're all highly experienced barbers that have been here in the Wilton, Fort Lauderdale area for quite some time.
And I've seen you have some extremely sexy coworkers in addition to yourself. So yeah, if you like muscle boys and hot guys and great barbers, you can get it all there. Yeah. So I know that as part of your winning Mr. Ramrod, you've said that you want to help grow the leather community. And what do you mean by that, and how do you foresee that coming along?
My whole platform is the building the community. It's so important because we're going to get old and we're going to be gone one day, or we're not going to be going out as much, and we need to replace ourselves in a sense, or we need to grow ourselves so that there are people that can continue our legacy and our journey. Otherwise, we're going to fade away. And under my watch, I'm not going to let that happen, period. It is so important. You know, I see so many, as Ramrod, as a traditional leather Levi bar, it is very hyper masculine. It is growing so much. I've been in South Florida from Chicago for 6 years now, and I've seen drastic change from the day I walked into that bar. And now you have everything. You got trans people, non-binary people, every color, race, and creed, from fat to skinny, old, young. It's a mixture of everything. And years back, that wouldn't have been as accepted. People would talk about it and ask these people to go away, and it was very uncomfortable for anybody. Nowadays, it's really changed, and I think I'm a big part of that. I've been told by a lot of the people that I know there, thank you, James, for just being here. You're such an integral part of Ramrod, and we're glad that you are representing our bar now. And one of my best friends, I don't want to put names out there without permission here, he and I were there all the time. And what we do specifically when we see the weird kid that walked in a polo and flip-flops and looks completely lost, we go up to that person and we buy him a drink and we ask him to come and sit with us and ask him what brought him there. He could have said he stumbled from the wrong bar. Okay, so be it, we're gonna have a little fun. Or he could be like, you know, I have fantasized about leather for so long. I think it's hot. I think you guys are hot. I like all this stuff and I don't know where to start. And we teach them, we guide them. That's how this community is built.
And I, as a person who's part of the leather community here, I feel like South Florida is one of the few places in the country that still has a growing leather community. And a lot of it has to do with Ramrod, who's been there for 28 years, and also the Eagle, which is right on the drive. So they kind of suffer not being able to be the more traditional leather bar, but it becomes a great way for people to have a place. They may have bought a leather harness on a cruise and they want to get more involved. And it has become like the place people can go as like their introduction to leather and the leather community and meet more people. And Ramrod is one of the only bars I know of in the entire country that still has a regularly occurring enforced dress code night, which is you're now in charge of hosting that. So what do you think of that kind of aspect of our community?
I think it's fantastic. Any opportunity, whether it's Eagle or whether it's Hunters doing a leather night, or Alibi they were doing a leather night. Yeah. Gym Bar is a sports bar, which is a fetish as well, which is also involved with Pig Week and everything. There's a large amount out there. It's every opportunity to bring to the table, basically. Mm-hmm. So.
And what community activities are you involved in? I know you do cigar socials. Tell us about some of that.
I need to clone myself because I don't have enough of James to give away sometimes. And it's, you know, one of the weaknesses I have is saying no. I've learned to overcome that weakness. And sometimes you just gotta say, no, I can't be in two places at once, or I need to sleep for one. But yeah, I'm involved in a lot. I'm involved with the Cigar Social. I'm part of Mama's Family. We have the Sandy Mama Helping Hands Foundation here, which we're getting ready to do a fundraiser for that for the holidays. I'm involved in charity work, fundraisers. I participate in all the other Mr. Eagle Wilton Manors. I volunteer my time. Being being here, there's only been here 6 years and I've done so much. You travel back to Chicago, I started so much. I started a website for the trans male community. I worked in the bar industry, so it was even easier being more involved working in the bars because you could do a lot more.
You're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for people who may not know, Mama's Family is a national organization. Can you describe it a little bit for our viewers?
So currently right now there's approximately 2,700 members globally. It's not just here in the US. I mean, we got people, I think there's somebody in Australia as far as that. And what that is you're inducted into Mama's Family. And a little bit about Mama briefly. She's been around doing work for about 30, 40 years. And when the AIDS crisis happened, she opened her home to people that were living with HIV that were literally tossed into the streets. They were sick and nobody knew what was going on. And she provided a bed for them to sleep in, clothing, medication, toiletries. And that was the beginning of Mama's Foundation. And she started the family, and people, you get this pin, which is right here on my vest. I'm Mama's Trans Man. Everybody has a name, from Mama's Jello Shot Boy to Mama's Starlit Sky, whatever it is. That's your name and your image. And what we do as family members, we do fundraising, especially during the holidays, and there's stuff throughout the year that's done. And all that goes to her foundation, which provides medicine, food, diapers, toiletries, everything in the form of Target gift cards or grants to people living with HIV or LGBTQ youth. And she's based out of San Francisco now. She is a legend, and Mr. Eagle Wilton Manor's Corey Dave in 2020, he started the Mama's Helping Hands Foundation, which became a 501c here, which was presented by the mayor of Wilton Manors at the Eagle last year. And Corey had me inducted a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I became part of Mama's Family officially, and I've been helping raise money for all these families since that day.
Yeah, I've met her a couple times, and she's small in stature and huge in personality. I love her.
Exactly.
And you've mentioned that you are a trans man. Yes. I've mentioned on the show before, I'm the vice president of Lambda Men's Brotherhood, and we do the annual Leather Mask Ball. And you were one of my models a couple years ago for our advertisements, and we received a lot of flack for having a person with transgender experience on the ads at first, and then everybody stopped caring. So what has your experience as a man of the transgender experience, and the first Mr. Ramrod, who's a trans man, what has it been like, and the visibility, what does that mean to you?
Well, this is the first I'm hearing that there was flack.
Yeah, it wasn't from the locals.
I don't hear flack.
The locals know you.
I'm just James. That's what I tell you. Everybody knows me. If you know I'm trans, you know I'm trans. I have no problem sitting down and educating people about it. It gets old after a bazillion conversations. But I am a gay man that happens to be trans. I don't live my life as a transgendered person. Some people do. That's fine. Everybody has a choice to how they're going to run their life and their image. Mm-hmm. I'm just a gay man that happens to be trans, and it's very well known. I'm well known enough I don't need to go around wearing on my forehead. I don't really encounter any issues for it. I think I could count on my hand and my whole life I've had a problem with being trans. I never really transitioned. I grew up male my whole life. I knew it at 3 years old, and I presented male since then. I had a brief moment, through high school where I was confused between sexuality and gender, and and again, sexuality and gender are separate. I'm a gay man that has nothing to do with my gender. Who I'm attracted to has no bearing on my gender. You couldn't have gay or straight if that was the case. But that's very important to remember, because some people ask, I'm just me. And if somebody has a problem with it, that's their problem. It's not my problem. It really isn't. But I'm fully transitioned. I'm not transitioning. So I see a lot of our members in our trans community that catch a lot of flack that are transitioning. So your first 5 years, it's like going through puberty. It's very awkward. You look all over the board. You know, some days you look more masculine or feminine or this or that, or it's a transition. It's just like puberty. When you were a young boy, your voice cracked, and then one day it's deep, and one day it's high. Other things are growing, everything's happening. It's the same thing. So, just like in high school, everybody's picking on people, making fun of them as they're going through puberty, and it happens to trans people too, because they don't know if you're are you a boy, you're a girl, or you haven't had surgical removal of the chest surgery. I don't want to put a name on it because everybody calls it something, boobs or chesticles or whatever. There's always a name for something. So
Gender confirmation is...
And until you have your surgery, that makes it very awkward, so you could really conform to what your body image matches and aligns with your gender identity.
Yeah, as someone who's been in this community 10 years now down here in South Florida, I remember when you came to town, and I've seen a lot of changes towards acceptance. There's another individual who we both know who recently had his top surgery, and that's changed his outlook hugely. His confidence has gone through the roof. And the leather community seems to be very accepting of that. And you're going to compete for International Mr. Leather next year, which I'm so proud of you. That's awesome. And we've actually had 2 recent IML winners who are transgender, as well as an International Mr. Boot Black. What do you think the nationwide and global community, do you think it's evolving? Are there still holdovers towards acceptance?
Yes, there's still definitely a lot to work on. Last year at IML, there was a massive fiasco on Twitter. A person who is a trans male identified, might be non-binary, I'm not sure, but somebody of the trans community held a class at IML, and it was called, I think the term was gay male sex with a vagina. But he used the word vagina, which threw everybody for a loop. And people went, there was a lot of hate, comments. It was really bad. It was a Twitter explosion. People condoning at IML, saying, what are we turning this? It was just terrible. I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff. However, our word choices are so important. At CLAW in 2016, I was my first CLAW. And the following year, I had the first trans male class held at CLAW, and now it continues. I have other guys that have continued the class for me. I started it, and I called Sexing the Gay Trans Man. I used masculine terms, the word man, sex. It was kinky. It was a good title for the class, and it's a very successful class. As far as I know, there was no backlash.
And for our CLAW is Cleveland Leather Awareness Weekend. So yes, there's even big leather kinky events in Cleveland. Okay, so wherever you are, the community is there. And another person in our local community who is an adult performer who uses she, they pronouns, identifies as femme non-binary, and I saw she recently got some hate messages from a member of the trans community because she does adult work and she's well endowed and likes her penis. And so I feel like it's even people who should know better are having trouble with the acceptance. So it's great to see the leather community embracing you, because you're family to me, as well as so many other people. What are your goals at IML?
To win. I'm going to win.
I think you are.
So. And Ramrod has a very good history at winning and placing in the top 4. We had Blade, who was 4th place this year. We had 2 members, 2005, Michael Edges, and sorry, my brain is like French fried. 98. Both of them won IML, and there are multiple members that have placed 2nd place year after year. It's got a good run and good history. And I'm excited. I'm going out there to do my best. I didn't choose to become Mr. Ramrod. I didn't choose to run for this title. My community chose me. I was asked by multiple, I can't even count how many people said, James, please run. You need to run. We need a leader. You're a good leader. everything you do for the community is so important, and we need you. And it was the last day to sign up for Mr. Ramrod. And one of the bar staff members came and handed me an application, put it on the bar in front of me. I looked at the thing for about 10 minutes, and I was discussing, and people came up to me and they're like, do it, we need you. And I said, all right, give me the pen.
For those of you who've never been to a leather competition, it's much different than you would expect. I was the den daddy for Mr. Ramrod, which is kind of like the stage manager, helping the guys get dressed if they need to. The camaraderie is so different than most other contests or pageants. I know Matthew, who was first runner-up, has mentioned he plans on going to IML to assist you. I don't know if Jack has.
Yes, they're both going to be my roommates at the hotel.
Yeah, that's something you don't see in so much of the community. Like, there's so much support and uplifting, and no one was angry that James won. Like, it was a shared joy, and it was such a unique thing in the leather community, I think, that we have that community. Because coming out as kink is almost like another closet to come out of. You know, you come out as gay, you come out as you know, as leather. There's so many closets to come out of. How many more closets do you have left?
Just my one in my bedroom. Yeah, the brotherhood is tremendous, and you know, this is not my first time going to IML. I went in 2016 and competed as Mr. Leather 6410, 2016, and the brotherhood that I had with the contestants then, I had with the same experience. It was more intense this time. You know, when I ran back then, I knew nothing about being a I ran into that blind completely. I was just doing community work and was trying to do more, and bam, it happened. This time is way different, you know. I have so much more experience, and it's so much more emotional and intense for me, because I believe what my platform and our community and the whole heart that I'm doing this for my community, this has nothing to do with me. I could sit back and do all the same work I'm doing without this title of Mr. Ramrod. I don't need it. But I was chosen to do it, and now that makes me the official leader to really speak for our community and get the community the building blocks, the tools, and everything necessary to become stronger and bigger and grow and less toxic, because there's so many things that are bad out there, and we need a strong person to speak for that community.
Mm-hmm. So before we end the interview, if someone was looking to get into leather or fetish, what advice would you give them, South Florida or anywhere?
Come and see me. No, for real. There's so many tools and stuff out there for us. Visit your bar, go out for a drink one night and meet people. Go to Leatherworks. Go check out this. Even if you don't have the money to buy anything, just go in there. Go in there on the naked shopping day and get naked and just kind of browse. You know, even if you don't have a lot of money to spend, you know, everybody needs lube. Buy a bottle of lube while you're there. Just get familiar with it. Get online and read. Get involved in the community. Ask where you can volunteer. There's so many opportunities. You can volunteer for the contests. You know, like there's the Mr. Eagle contest, there's Claw, there's MAL, even IML. You can, if you volunteer for these events, you get to attend for free, and you get to meet things, and you get to meet a lot of people, and you become that part of that brotherhood. Go to Pig Week. A lot of these people are there. That's coming up, starts the day after Thanksgiving. There's so many opportunities to get involved, and it's a great community.
And before we leave, somebody does want to reach out to you. What social media handles work best for that?
Facebook is my primary one. I go by James Barber on that. Instagram, I use that more or less for my work, but I can be reached through it, and that is Barber_James77. You could do message through text that way. That's the best way to get a hold of me, is message me on either one of those. I'm more apt to adding anybody on Instagram. That's not a problem. Facebook's a little more personal. I try to add as many people as I can that are part of the community. I've been getting a lot of spam requests. It's kind of exploded since the title win. So
We're going to set you up with a title page for fans. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. It's so good to have you here. Like I said, combining my work life and my personal life, getting you out here. We can't wait to see you at IML and on that stage, at that podium. And if you do have any questions, like I said, reach out to James, or you can just message Queer News Tonight on social media, and I can make sure he gets a hold of you. So thank you so much.
thank you.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and